Good morning, Americans. This is your favorite alien sitting in for Paul Harvey this morning on Tuesday, November 21st, 2022. Stand by for the rest of the story. Well, today, Americans, the rest of the story is on the Massacre. And it was done by Paul Harvey back in the 1960s. And Mr. Dyson, if you're listening, you'll like this one. It's a rendition of Paul Harvey's story back in 1965, I believe, 66. But anyway, here it goes. There was a confrontation between protesters and the law. The protesters had an agenda or a purpose, they said, but actually the people that were manipulating them had an agenda. And same with the law. And when you have people like that manipulating both sides, you have a problem. Kind of like today, those people who follow Joseph Biden and Donald J. Trump, they're being manipulated because there's an agenda. Trump's agenda is his view is the only view that counts. There's no Republican view there. There's no American view. It's his view. And his view is he deserves to be president. Joseph Biden, on the other hand, has that democracy is it, but it's got to be Democrat-type democracy. Yeah. And this was the case on this little altercation here. Little known at the time. And this will come through my point of view here. I've researched this numerous times and came to the same conclusion that Paul Harvey did. He never said it on this program. But I bet you Mr. Dyson, if you look at this from the point of view of the 18th and look at it from the point of view of the 21st century, you'll see that they have the same kind of devious thinking. This is one case where both centuries kind of are together. Well, the protesters went in and they were armed, same as the law. It was armed. And the leader of the lawmen had told his men, at all costs, do not fire. The leader of the protesters were told at all costs, open fire. They wanted a resolution and they wanted it in their favor. So what happened? Well, they got together. Pleasantries were exchanged. 18th century and 21st century type pleasantries, if you know what I mean. Anyway, fires started from the protesters, and fire was returned by a few of the lawmen. At the end, 5 protesters lost their lives. And thus became the Massacre. Well, I've seen massacres, people, hundreds. And believe me, you don't understand what that word means. You Americans never understood what massacre means until you actually see it. Only the World War II veterans know what massacre means at a level, if you were in Germany and Japan. Because there was massacres all over the place on those 2 theaters. But here in the United States, there's never been a massacre, and you still use that word today. Massacre. 5 people died. And why? Well, according to the protesters, the law initiated the massacre. Yeah. So the attorney was hired for the lawman. And he presented side of the protesters that looked ugly, big time in court. He proved to no uncertain terms that they were there for an agenda, and not a cause, but an agenda. Get yourself killed, and the agenda is served. But the unfortunate thing is you didn't tell the protesters that they were supposed to sacrifice their lives for this agenda. And there was an agenda over there on the law side too. And the agenda was, don't shoot, get yourself killed, and they'll look horribly terrible. Well, I forget how many got killed because the accurate number is not there. Only the 5 people that died because they wanted to promote their side on the protesters. The lawyer brought witness after witness who asserted that the officer in charge of the lawman did not order to fire. And the persons that fired acknowledged that they did it at their own cause because they were returning fire before they got killed. Self-defense. Okay? No matter which law system you do, self-defense is a tough thing to overcome. Therefore, the leader of the lawmen was acquitted, and the guys that shot were acquitted. And not because it was a rubber stamp as you say it was. They were acquitted because of the attorney's case, and the attorney proved it in court that it was an agenda on both sides. The case in question, Americans, took place on March 5th, 1770. The Boston Massacre. That one of the things that you say led up to the American Revolution. I say no. The Boston Tea Party, on the other hand, 3 years later, may have. But the Boston Massacre, no. Because it was not. It was taken as Trump would take his version of events and spin them to the level that he does. And this is what they did in the colonies. They spin it on the level that you guys don't understand. But if you look at the case and you look at the attorney's record, and he did a good case. He sacrificed himself. And who was the attorney, you say? A British attorney, yeah. No, he was an American attorney. Some of you don't think highly of him. But he became a well-famous guy. One of the guys that didn't think of him, Thomas Jefferson, hated him because of it. He never said it, but he did write in his records. And this is why he said John Adams still lives in 1826. Yes, John Adams, your second president of the United States, defended the British officers who fired on those protesters on March 5th, 1770 at the Boston Massacre. See what I mean, Americans? And here we are over 250 years later. And you still are taking that kind of attitude by listening to people like Joseph Biden and Donald J. Trump, with the same type philosophies as the British had and the American colonies had at the time. Agendas, not the people's business. Sitting in for Paul Harvey. This is your favorite alien. Good day.